Hi, Mickey Sinartys back here again. We're doing another one of our fabulous interviews for the big Showstopper Stars Hollywood Celebrity Trade Show, which is coming up. And we are excited because we have who I would consider the foremost voiceover person in all of movies, television, any market you want to look at. She's done more voices than anyone else in the world, along with a cartoonist and character artists. I'm talking, of course, with June Foray. David Nimitz is here, and June, it's always going to... I know you've done other voices, but it always comes back to Rocky, doesn't it? Rocky.
Hokey Smoke, it sure does. And Natasha, darling. Everybody loves Natasha, even Boris.
Let me try some. Let's see if your memory remembers. As Bullwinkle would run and say, "Hey, Rocky, watch me pull this rabbit out of the hat."
Yeah, but that trick never works.
Uh-oh, presto. Wrong hat.
Wrong hat.
I've done it once, yeah. I wasn't Bullwinkle, though. That was someone else. Who did Bullwinkle?
That was Bill Scott. He was a co-producer, and he was the head writer. He wrote all of the Bullwinkle segments. There were other writers who did Fractured Fairy Tales and Aesop's fables and things, but Bill was the main writer. He was also Dudley Do-Right, and I was Nell. And he was George of the Jungle, and I was Ursula, and Fella.
Now that particular one started in 1959, right?
Yes. Actually, I think it was November of 59. From 59 to 61 on ABC, and then from 61 to 64 on NBC. And then it went into rerun.
And it still pops up all the time. It's out there all the time. You can't get away from Bullwinkle and Rocky and the gang, which is good, I think. They're some of the best cartoons ever made. Also, I just want to, because you are, I said this at the start, you're the foremost voiceover artist in the world. How does one become that? Because when you started, did it just something you wanted to do, or did you just fall into it? Or?
I never expected to be in animation, but when I was 5 or 6 years old, my mother and father were very esoteric people. They'd take us to movies and theater, and I said, I want to be an actress. I'd come home and, even at that age, imitate people. And so they were a little skeptical, but they became very supportive. And when I was 12, one of my teachers had a radio show, and I was on it. And it made me feel so good, so that there was an actual group of people who did a show every week on the same radio show in Springfield, Massachusetts. So I had the hubris to go and say, I can do a lot of these voices. Would you help? I was only 15 at the time. And that's when I started professionally.
And tell us the first big job you had as a voiceover artist.
The voiceover artist, well, of course, I had done radio shows with Steve Allen, and we did 2 hours. I was Julie the Girlfriend. And I worked with Danny Thomas about the whole everything. And then I was put under contract to Capitol Records. I guess they heard all of the funny cartoon type voices that I did. And at that time, neither Disney or Warner's had record companies. And so they heard me. And so Disney called me over to do The Cat in Cinderella. Didn't have any dialogue, but I was working for Walt Disney.
And this started, I guess they liked you, and eventually you went on to Peter Pan and went on with other studios and everything.
Well, after I did Trick or Treat, I did The Witch and Witch Hazel. My agent called and he said, "I've got a job for you. Would you like to work at Warner Brothers?" And I said, "Listen, I'll work any place." He said, "Well, you'll work for Chuck Jones." And I said, "Chuck who?" I didn't know who Chuck Jones was. He said, "Well, he does Bugs Bunny." And I knew Bugs Bunny, So I got into the studio and I met Chuck, who was very tall, handsome, esoteric, intelligent guy. And he handed me the script and it said, "Witch Hazel." And I didn't have the nerve to say, I just did this at Disney. You've got the same actress, the same voice, and the same name. But I did it anyway. And then it became very famous. I think it became more famous, with the hairpins flying. And then I asked Mark Davis, he was one of the 9 old men. I said, Mark, why did you call her Witch Hazel? Because Disney couldn't copyright that. It's an alcohol rum of some kind. So he said, well, we named it after our nurse. We loved her. So, but Witch Hazel became very famous.
It's been a career. And speaking of cartoons, this guy sitting next to you here, he's a cartoonist extraordinaire. Is that a good thing to say?
I should hope so, I guess. Trying to stay in the business, but I've worked in many films and been lucky in my career.
You worked with Disney and Warner Brothers. What are some of the films you worked on?
Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, Lion King, Pocahontas, Iron Giant, which is my most favorite piece, Space Jam, Back in Action, Looney Tunes Back in Action. So I've worked with June a couple times on those movies, and gosh, there's so many movies. Osmosis Jones, Brother Bear, Home on the Range, the Tigger movie.
And has a cartoon. What do you paint the characters? Or?
Yes, all the characters are hand drawn and scanned into the computer. So in the ink and paint department, we put the color into the characters, and it's not just laying colors color by number. We're actually taking the drawings and scanning them in, and after 8 months of going to the studio to get filthy, so we could actually spend 8 hours on 4 drawings, and we're cleaning the lines and fixing the mistakes that the cleanup artist may have missed. And it's a tedious process, but it's also fun because when it's on the big screen, you're like, that's mine right there, and that was your little piece of the movie. And I certainly felt like that with all the ones that I've worked on, especially Iron Giant, which is my most favorite that I've gotten lucky to work with Brad Bird on.
And you have a little thing going where you do celebrity characters, which we're going to see at the show, by the way. And there's one of June Foray, and who else do you have?
I have Lee Merriweather. I have the Golden Girls, which they actually started the whole thing. This project was started for my late mother, who passed away of cancer. 6 years ago, I did the first drawing of the Golden Girls for her. And then I started with Judge Judy because she made me watch that every day with her when she was sick. And little by little, I was making a couple of them. And then before she passed, she said, promise me we'll do something with this. And something compelled me to just keep making more. And everybody I work with said, you got a book here. And I just said, okay, I'm going to do 100. When I hit 100, I was going to do 200 now. So now I'm up to 175, and I've met a lot of the ladies along the way, and with their support and help, like June Foray and Lee Merriweather and Betty Garrett, and a lot of these ladies that have been very supportive to me. It's little by little becoming something, but I'm keeping the spirit of my mother in it, and it's all women in her era. And hopefully it'll be a book one day.
And some of those stars you just mentioned will be at the show, along with David Nimitz and June Foray, the voiceover extraordinaire person. Keep in mind, we're going to be doing the Hollywood celebrity trade show, the star-studded event coming up soon, and 2 of our stars, David Nimitz, who joined us here. You're working on. We found out what you're doing right now. And June, what are you got? Anything planned or anything just completed or?
I've completed a lot of things, but now I'm trying to write my autobiography. It's going to be titled "Did You Grow Up With Me Too?" Because every time I meet somebody, they say, "Oh, I grew up with you," with the Disney things and Rock and Bullwinkle and so.
Well, I want to thank you both. And as we close, I wonder if you could just do one thing for me. Can we have Natasha close it out, just say goodbye and be at the show and take care.
I will not say goodbye. I would say bye-bye, darling.
Thank you, June Foray, David Nimitz. It's been a pleasure. And don't forget, we're going to be there, so you be there too, at Showstopper Stars, the Celebrity Trade Show.